So in this module, I want to talk to you about setting guardrails. And this is something that we don't talk about very often as entrepreneurs. You know, we hear so much about the grind and hustling and just outworking everybody. And we've kind of come to accept that we have to put in these incredibly long hours and everything else is going to be sacrificed while we're building a business. I'm here to tell you that that's not true. Now, I'm not going to tell you you're not going to have to work hard and you're not going to have to work some odd hours, especially in the startup phase, because you certainly are. But if you're still treating your business like a startup 3, 4, 5 years in, then we're doing something wrong. So I want to introduce the concept of guardrails. Now, guardrails is a term that was actually introduced to me by my good friend John Berardi. And to that point, I had always kind of had a different way of describing. I talked about rules of engagement or just kind of the rules that I operate my business by. But when he used the word guardrails, I felt like a light bulb went off for me. And he talked about his guardrails. Now, obviously, you probably know John is the co-founder and CEO, former CEO. They've even hired a CEO now, so he's kind of delegated and elevated here. But you know him as the co-founder of Precision Nutrition, which is really a standard bearer in our industry as far as doing incredible work, being the best at what they do, and really being an undisputed market leader. Now, with that in mind, John has some guardrails in place by which he's accomplished all of this, or by which he operates as a facilitator for his organization accomplishing all this. Now, listen to these guardrails that he has in place. One is he never wants to work more than 7 hours in a day. Now, I mean, think about that. Think about how many people show up at work at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. and then they're working until 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night repeatedly. Yet John's been able to build an organization with his team, obviously, that is a multiple 8-figure organization by having that standard in place. The second thing is he doesn't want to work Fridays. He wants to use Friday as a family day to spend, on dates with his 4 children, really time away from the day-to-day of operating. So think about that. He has 28 hours during the course of the week that is his core work schedule. Now, is that to say that he doesn't go beyond that? No. I mean, I've received emails from John on a Saturday before. I've certainly received emails in the evening before from him from time to time. But that's kind of his operating practices. That's the way that he goes about doing business. And I think that's just such a good place to start. Now, what other guardrails does he have in place? Well, he wanted to build a world-class education company without having to travel the world. Now, think about that in contrast to somebody like Martin Rooney in Training for Warriors, who has certainly built a great organization in his own right, but Martin is traveling, 40-plus weekends a year to host certifications and workshops, whereas John may travel like 4 to do the same thing. So they've crafted their entire educational platform around being distance learning. So he could do that without having to travel. And then another guardrail they have in place was they wanted to be able to hire A players, the best players out there, regardless of geography. So Precision Nutrition doesn't even have an office. I mean, how many companies that do in excess of $30 million a year don't even have a corporate office? Everybody works from home. I mean, that's just astounding. But, what's amazing about this is that a company like that can accomplish these things without following traditional practices, without doing what everybody else does. Now, for me, some of the guardrails that I've put in place, obviously I want to work from home. I want to be here so that I can transition very easily to, being a dad or being a husband from, being a business owner, an entrepreneur, a coach. So, one of my guardrails is working at home. Another one is that it's family first. So I'm always scheduling my family events before I'm scheduling business events, not the other way around. the third guardrail that I have in place is that I am going to relentlessly play to my strengths and pretty much eliminate, delegate, outsource the rest of it. And so I spend my time, connecting with people, coaching, creating either emails or courses like this. I'm not spending my time doing the things that are not in my wheelhouse. So those are 3 of my guardrails, and I've built my business accordingly. Now, what I have found is that guardrails are actually a path to a better business, not a limiting factor, but they force you to get out of the norm. I mean, if you say, okay, I'm going to operate my business in a certain way, but you still have goals that you're trying to achieve that we talked about in previous module, well, now it forces you to find better solutions and not just defaulting to what everybody else does. And to me, that is so, so powerful. That is so, so important. I mean, think about some of the guardrails you could set. You could certainly set something in place that, okay, I'm not going to work Saturdays, or I'm going to take off one night a week to have a date night with my significant other. You could set guardrails about not training morning sessions, or not doing any coaching session that isn't, profitable by X amount, or, a guardrail that, hey, I'm going to take 3 weeks of vacation each and every year. They're just basically rules that you force yourself to exist by, so you don't feel like you're held hostage by your business. You don't feel like there's only one way to do things. Now, when I've seen clients do this, and I've seen so many, automatically what they've found is this wonderful sense of relief, because in truth, they've been playing by rules that shouldn't have existed in the first place. I mean, I've had people tell me that there's no way they could train less than 30 sessions a week personally, and within 6 months, they're training 6 sessions a week. Yet they're just as profitable as they were before. I've had people tell me there's no way their business could survive if they took a week off, or if they decided to, take 2 nights a week off because they coached they coached athletes, and they wanted to go watch the young athletes they coached in their actual games. Over and over and over, people tell me that they couldn't function unless they do things the way they've been doing them, and it's just not true. I even had this conversation with my dad yesterday. We talked about him. He's further along in his business, and he's certainly had some successes and some failures along the way, but overall, he's done fine, and he's in a good place of security. But he has these false kind of expectations or false obligations that he thinks he can't get around. Like, years ago, he worked half a day on Saturday for 2 decades. Decided to be closed on Saturdays, and I'm sure at some point he thought, well, there's no way I could do that. Things would just implode. Well, you know what? He stopped. Nothing changed, right? So I was telling him yesterday, I'm like, hey, just be closed on Fridays. Plenty of doctors are only open, their practice is only open 4 days a week. I said, why couldn't you do that? And he gave me a host of excuses. Yeah, think about me business coaching for my dad, right? But, and that's just that false sense of belief that there's no way he could be closed on Friday without, there just being a mass exodus of his clientele. And I'm like, man, there's not a chance in the world. I said, every one of them, without question, would stay with you. And if you decided that somebody had an emergency, you always have the opportunity to go outside those guardrails. These are not black and white rules. They're kind of shades of gray that you as the business owner get to decide. Now, will he do this? Nah, he's pretty stubborn, so he probably won't. But it's true. He could easily be closed on Friday, and not much at all would change in his business. Yeah, the capacity at which he could work, the volume would definitely shrink a little bit. But the truth is, he's not filling any hour of the day to capacity now at this stage of his business, now that he's, close to retirement. So he could condense that. But we convince ourselves of things that aren't true. We convince ourselves that nobody else can do the job, or if we don't accommodate every hour of the day, that people are just going to up and leave. And it's just not a fact. I mean, we see it in every business but ours. We don't always expect, if we go to the doctor, other people might actually have some interaction with us. The doctor doesn't have to be the one to check us in at the front counter. They don't have to be the person to walk into the treatment room with us first. They don't have to be the person, if we're there an hour, they may be spending 15 minutes with us and we still felt like we got a good experience, or at least we got the experience we expected. We work around other people's schedules. The key here is making sure you find a better solution, not just thinking that less is more, better is more. So we have to find better ways to approach things. So here's the way that I look at this, and I understand that this is kind of an awkward visual when I put this. So like our goal is to really achieve a target, to achieve a goal. And let's say that the goal is like the destination on a road. Well, our plan, which we're going to go over in a future module here, is the road itself. The guardrails are just the boundaries on the outside of the road that keep us on track with the plan. So all we have to do is develop a plan that stays within those guardrails, and we're going to be able to achieve any realistic yet aggressive goal that we put together. So don't think that there's only one way to do things, or that you have to default to what you've always done. Because I assure you, if you just do what you've always done, you're going to get the same outcome you've always received. Don't think that you have to do things exactly the way that everybody else does, because anytime somebody's come into the market that we admire, that stands out, I don't care if we're talking about another fitness business owner or training business, or if we're talking about businesses outside of our industry, anybody that is noteworthy, anybody that we're talking about is probably doing something a little bit different than everybody else. Otherwise, they would just be bland. They would just be the norm, and they wouldn't be worth us discussing. So think about the guardrails that you want to have in place. And my recommendation, start with some conservative ones. Think of just something as simple as, hey, if you're working every Saturday, taking one Saturday off a month and then scaling up from there. Because what you'll see is you'll find ways to make it work. You'll find solutions so that you can build the business you want within those boundaries, within those parameters, within those guardrails. So that's guardrails. Put them in place in your business, and you're going to see things change immensely. I mean, we see it in Ideal Business Academy or Ideal Business Mastermind. When we talk about our wins from the previous quarter, we ask people to share personal and professional, and everybody is taking more time off and having a better quality of life and having more vacation time, even though their business is becoming more profitable. If they can do it, you can do it too.